Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the BC Conservatives are questioning the results of the provincial election, Los Angeles continues to be damaged by monstrous wildfires, and we have word on some developments coming the way of Kitimat soon.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Baslett, and here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond today. City West put out a release disclosing what they will be doing in the city of Prince Rupert in the near future. The main focus of their work will be expanding their fiber to the premise network by building a pair of new nodes in key areas. Around 500 or so homes are expected to get connected to City West's fiber optic services, and they also plan on establishing a community investment fund this year. Other parts of the release talk about more future plans like reducing their debt owed to Prince Rupert and working on another coastal-based project. The entire release can be found on City West's website. In Kitimat, several developments were made in the district the past few months to bring some new landmarks to the area. CFTK's Damian Smith has more.
In Kitimat, a survey was passed through the district and over 500 people participated. The district of Kitimat revealed that a splash park will be in the works with the theme as Ocean Adventures. For Mayor Phil Germuth, this is just another leisure service that he and his team want to be available to the public.
Anything you can have in your community that gives another reason for somebody to maybe look at Kitimat as their place to move to is great.
And Germuth believes that this pad can be yet another addition to Kitimat's downtown core, especially to families with younger kids.
Of the most people that have moved here, over the past, say, 7-8 years, the number one comment I get from all of them is their number one accolade for Kitimat is just how safe a place it is, and they love that. So, this is one more amenity to, get kids outside and have more of an active lifestyle, right? And get the whole family involved. The location of this splash park, spray park is really good too, because it's right by the pool, which also, of course, right in the middle of your downtown. So there's a lot of restaurants nearby, etc. So it gives the opportunity for people to go out and do a bunch of other things too while they're down there.
Now, because this pad has just been revealed in the 2025 budget for the district, it is expected that it will be ready before the warm weather arrives in 2026.
We're very proactive as the district of Kitimat, through our director of leisure services and the whole department there of wanting to do whatever we can to allow people to get out. We have a lot of hiking trails here, some of the greatest fishing in the world. We've got the recreation facilities, etc. If you like the outdoors, really, Kitimat is a great place to be.
From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith.
Another protest happened yesterday outside of the Old Mills Memorial Hospital as the Skeena Valley seniors call for the building to be used for involuntary care. Now over to CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews for more.
The Skeena Valley seniors braved the rainstorm yesterday for the sake of once again protesting the demolition of Mills Memorial Hospital. This time, the protest is in response to Premier Eby's recent comments on the significant expansion of involuntary care, part of a new phase of BC's response to the opioid addiction crisis.
Across British Columbia, we know it's urgent to get people supports that are struggling with serious mental health issues and brain injury, as well as addiction. We can see people struggling in our streets, as well as, in some cases, involved in very violent and scary incidents. And so making sure that people get the care they need so that they're safe, as well as so the larger community is safe and protected, is critically important. So we're full speed ahead on that project.
The Skeena seniors suggest using the Mills Memorial Hospital for involuntary care, citing the lack of a facility being the biggest hurdle to immediate treatment needs, and that repurposing the building could be the answer. However, according to Northern Health, the old Mills Memorial Hospital opened in 1961, and the build has been stretched to the limit. They state that building codes have changed significantly since the 60s. Additionally, the site of Mills Memorial Hospital will be used for parking for the new hospital once it's been demolished. Once the removal of the inside materials is completed, demolition will begin, and that's slated for sometime between late February and April. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
A new report that appeared on the Kitimat RCMP's website discussed the first few incidents that occurred in 2025. A notable part of the report talked about how officers were called out to a disturbance at a business near the city center, although the ones who caused the disturbance had apparently left the scene. But through tools like CCTV footage, police arrested a 41-year-old man in connection with this case, and he's currently awaiting a future court date. Coming up next is a further look into Radanak International in Cambodia. Welcome back. Now to the latest on a story about the BC Conservatives who are questioning the validity of some ballots cast in the provincial election. The party says there were voting irregularities in the Surrey-Guildford riding, which ended up flipping, and the NDP won by 22 votes. As CTV's Rob Buffett reports, some of the concerns involve an addiction recovery facility.
The BC Conservatives say they've uncovered dozens of voter irregularities in a critical riding it lost.
Probably some of the more disturbing things that we have found is in particular in the riding of Surrey-Guildford.
The party alleges 45 votes there raised red flags, so its unsuccessful candidate has filed a complaint with Elections BC and plans to launch a court challenge to have the result deemed invalid.
The point at hand is that the justice must prevail and the democracy must be protected.
The Conservatives claim there are 22 ballots by folks who didn't live in the riding, one person who voted twice, and 21 mail-in ballots cast at this mental health and addictions home, nearly all its residents, even though they could have voted in person across the street at a school.
The voting station was just 80 meters across the road.
The NDP's Gary Bigg won the riding by a mere 22 votes, the narrow win securing a one-seat majority for the NDP.
It's the right to bring any complaints or investigations forward to Elections BC. We as a government have been focused on the things that matter to British Columbians, including the pressing issues of potential tariffs from the states.
The Conservatives have gathered sworn affidavits, including from residents of Argyle Lodge, suggesting they didn't request mail-in ballots and were coerced. One statement noting, "I marked the ballot where they pointed it, and I was led to believe that I had no choice but to mark the ballot. Otherwise, I feared that I would be kicked out of the house." The home's manager denies the allegations, calling them nonsense and baffling, telling CTV the most that happened was staff helped with the address on forms.
We are going to look at everything in relation to this election and bring forward any recommendations that we think are necessary.
The Conservatives are also calling for an independent inquiry by a judge into the entire election and Elections BC, and want to see stricter requirements for proof of citizenship.
The most recent story about sex trafficking before today talked about a former BC RCMP member founding an organization in Cambodia that helps human trafficking victims. Now we get an up-close look at the work Radanak International is doing to help people robbed of their freedom. Here's CTV's Michelle Bernoro.
It's something we don't see in BC, a red light district like this one in Cambodia's capital.
This is one of many streets where young women come down to the big city to try and help their poor families. They're desperate to earn some money to send back to mom and dad.
But BC's Brian McConaughey says too often the young women, who mostly come from rural areas, end up in a job they did not want.
They get off the bus looking for nannies jobs or factory jobs, and they end up spun around in places like this almost instantly.
How young are some of the girls here? They look like they're like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, and many of them are.
McConaughey began his work in Cambodia decades ago, helping the RCMP on investigations to jail 2 sex predators from BC, abusing children overseas.
It's a custom-built building.
Later, his organization, supported by Canadians, built this secure center in Phnom Penh, where they protect and support those who have been trafficked internationally. While CTV was there, one of the victims in their care turned out to be just 13.
We will assess them, what do they need, and also we also screening them to make sure that they are okay, because some of them are not okay.
The first time they come back from Chinese, they look unhappy, but during the living with us, they start smiling, talking and sharing.
McConaughey says victims are often lured with promises of work or an arranged marriage.
They don't realize it's not marriage, it's slavery.
But they are afraid to leave, afraid of what the trafficker, often referred to as a broker, might do. There can be assaults or worse.
If the broker catch her, they will kill them. So that's why it makes them feel really scared.
McConaughey says the survivors they help have sometimes been trafficked to Malaysia, but most often to China.
Because of one-child policy and gender preference of the Chinese government for many decades, China is currently 35 million females short. That's 35 million men in China with no prospects of girlfriends or wives. That is a recipe for massive human trafficking.
In a statement to CTV News, the Chinese embassy in Ottawa tells us the number of trafficking cases involving women and children has dropped significantly over the past decade, and that China has continued to strengthen international cooperation in combating human trafficking. CTV is there on a night when workers from Radinac pile into a van responding to a call from social services about a flight coming from China with Cambodian trafficking victims on board. As the van heads through the streets, we follow behind.
We're heading out to the airport to pick up 5 young women and girls. 2 of them are minors. All of them have been enslaved. We don't know how long.
We soon reach the airport in Phnom Penh.
So we're at the airport now. Some of the staff have already gone in, preparing for the arrival of the aircraft. One of the things I love about this process is it almost feels clandestine because it's happening right in front of people, but nobody recognizes what's going on.
Radinac says that the women and the underage girls that they're waiting for here tonight would have had their identification, their visas taken away by the traffickers and likely destroyed. So special documentation has been arranged to allow them to return home to safety.
After a short wait, the trafficking victims emerge with Radinac workers. We're not showing their faces to protect their identity, but we follow again as they leave the airport.
To witness this, it's electrifying. To see them coming out, it's better than any movie because it's real. These are slaves set free.
Arriving back at the center, the survivors will soon begin the often long journey to healing. But now they are safe and they are free. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
And now we look at both your nightly and weekly weather forecast. The forecast for tonight will see a chance of showers at a low of 4 degrees on the north coast. A chance of showers plus a low of 1 degree for the Terrace Kitimat area should appear, and a few clouds with a low of -9 degrees will most likely be the weather for the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District. As for the weekly forecast, the north coast should see only rain and a high bouncing between 5 and 8 degrees. In the Terrace Kitimat area, the week for them will see clouds, rain, and snow with the high shifting from 1 to 6 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so is likely to get some sun, flurries, and rain as the high moves from -1 to 3 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, compact snow, water pooling, bridge maintenance, shoulder maintenance, and the Usk Ferry has been shut down for the season with the cable car now in effect. Highway 35 has slippery sections, and Highway 118 has slippery sections too. Highway 37 also has slippery sections, compact snow, and black ice. Highway 37A has compact snow, some more slippery sections on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections as well. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, the fires in LA are getting BC residents to call for better fire prevention measures. Welcome back. Harrowing scenes flood social media as Los Angeles continues burning. A series of wildfires killed at least 6 people, and officials expect the number to rise. Andrew Johnson has more on the firefight and growing Canadian contributions.
Eerie, empty, destruction. The tragic scene today in Southern California.
You wake up one morning and everything is normal. And you go to bed that night and you have nothing.
5 fires are now burning in the Los Angeles area. Close to 2,000 homes and buildings no longer exist. More than 200,000 people are on the run. Others stuck around, taking firefighting into their own hands.
I stopped one that went, and then it reignited at about 4:30 this morning, and thank God I woke up at the perfect time, and I got it, and I stopped it from burning my house.
The good news today, a break in the wind.
And that has enabled significant progress against the fires in Hollywood and Studio City.
There is a significant Canadian contribution in this unprecedented LA firefight.
This is something, it's a phenomenon. No one's ever seen anything like this before.
Several water bombers working the fires, like this one, are operated by Port Alberni, BC-based Coulson Aviation.
We flew in the Sunset Fire, which we caught, which was great. We flew over 200,000 liters of water. And we were on the Palisades Fire last night on structure protection.
Quebec-based water bombers and pilots are also involved. Plus, there's more Canadian help on the way. Doug Ford says he's directed Ontario to send every available water bomber, sparing no expense. The province will also provide firefighters and equipment. Danielle Smith says water bombers and night vision helicopters are on the way from Alberta. The Prime Minister posted a video of a Canadian water bomber in action captioned "Neighbours helping neighbours" and fellow Canadians like Carolyn Day. Day and her family are living out of backpacks in an Airbnb and have now received word flames are within meters of their LA area home.
Yesterday I decided that it was probably going to burn, and the faster I got used to this idea, the faster I could mourn it and be clear-minded to turn around and see what is next in our lives.
Feeling powerless, but staying positive as their family's future changes by the hour. Andrew Johnson, CTV News.
There are calls in BC to improve building codes so structures are more fireproof. As Yasmin Gandam reports, California's wildfires aren't surprising some experts who say BC can learn from the situation.
BC is no stranger to wildfires, but a UBC forestry professor says building standards here need to be stepped up.
Here in BC, we don't actually have strict province-wide or even nation-wide regulations.
He's been watching the California fires closely to understand the risk and how the disaster happened so early in the season.
We have more people living in the wildland-urban interface. We have hotter temperatures, longer summers, drier weather.
California has very strict building codes, but they were only introduced in 2022. Weisner has some advice for protecting your home that is cheaper than building a fire bunker.
Limit the number of combustible material you have. Reduce the sizes of windows you have. You need vents that prevent embers from getting into the building.
He adds what's happening in the Pacific Palisades isn't surprising, given the area is at a high wildfire risk, with dry conditions and powerful Santa Ana winds. This fire expert says it's a concern here in BC, as climate change is leading to a prolonged and more extreme wildfire season.
The fires are getting more severe, and we expect this trend in severity to increase.
He says the wind in Southern California is extreme and not what the area is used to.
Typically, Southern California gets its rain in October, November, December, and January. This year, they have not got the rain. So the dry conditions with the extremely strong Santa Ana event.
Flanagan is pushing for a federal emergency management agency in order to be better prepared for wildfires here in BC, especially since they may come earlier than expected. Yasmin Gandam, CTV News, Vancouver.
Most people don't expect to see ads for harmful drugs on social media, but according to several Facebook users, it happened to them. Mark Villani investigated these troubling ads that Facebook reportedly isn't taking seriously.
Most people scroll through Facebook Marketplace to find a good deal. Lane Ollenberg found something else. Ads for illegal drugs, ranging from MDMA nasal sprays to cocaine moon rocks, and even tablets for Percocet, Xanax, and ketamine started showing up on his newsfeed.
The picture on the advertisement was quite literally people snorting cocaine off of a glass table. You could pick your quality of cocaine like it was gasoline on this website, and it was, so I reported it.
But Facebook refused to remove the ad, and when Ollenburg appealed that decision, they deactivated his account entirely. Joshua McNeil got a similar response. He's recovering from addiction and found the messaging to be alarming.
To me, they obviously don't take it seriously. The visual of the actual drug can be very triggering.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook, says it prohibits these types of ads and invests resources to have them removed, but thousands of them are slipping through the cracks of its automated review system.
It's not even that they're slipping, they're just walking right through.
Calgary police say laying charges for online drug transactions is often difficult, as many of these incidents take place on the dark web with sellers and buyers from multiple provincial and international boundaries.
You can assume that if the drugs are being sold online, it's got some sort of tie back to organized crime in some way, shape, or form, and the whole goal of that is to get your information.
And while the U.S. Senate has called out Facebook for endangering kids,
the job of our company is building the best tools that we can to keep our community safe.
Well, you're failing at that.
Canadian users hope their online safety north of the border is taken more seriously. Mark Villani, CTV News, Calgary.
And now we turn our attention to how the stock markets look today compared to yesterday. The Canadian dollar is down 13/10 of a cent. The price of gold is up $24.20. Oil is up $2.65. Natural gas is up 29 cents. Aluminum is up $28.50. In Toronto, the TSX is down 305.63 points. The Venture Index is down 6.66. In New York, the Dow Jones is down 696.75, and Nasdaq is down 317.25. Still ahead, things have been looking fairly grim for the Canucks as of late. Welcome back. The Vancouver Canucks slipped into 2025, losing 8 of their last 10 as they cling to a playoff spot. Lots of season remains, but at this rate, the team could set a dubious record. Ben Milger has the Ringside Report.
The Canucks dropped an overtime decision to the Washington Capitals Wednesday night.
It's frustrating, but yeah, I mean, can't sulk about it. It is what it is. It's what, it's how it went, and 3 games left to still salvage and make it a good road trip.
The league record for overtime and shootout losses in a season is 18. This edition of the Canucks has now done it 10 times, putting them on pace for 20.
They've lost games early in overtime. They've lost games late in overtime. They've lost on breakaways. They've lost on glorious scoring opportunities. There's been a bunch of puck watching on the part of the Vancouver Canucks, and that was the case last night in Washington.
Overtime and shootout losses are still worth a single point in the standings, but for a team right on the playoff bubble, the failure to come out on top in just a handful of these games could ultimately leave them on the outside looking in. When Captain Quinn Hughes is not on the ice in OT, the Canucks struggle.
Well, we can't play Hughes the whole game. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. We had some chances. Unfortunate what happened.
Defenseman Philip Roenick, out with a lower body injury since November, has been sent to Abbotsford for a conditioning stint and should provide a boost on the back end for the Canucks when he returns. But the team may need some more help on D if they're going to contend for a playoff spot. Trade rumors continue to swirl around star forwards JT Miller and Elias Pettersson as their relationship remains an ongoing distraction.
Where it goes from here, who knows? Elias Pettersson's still out of the lineup. JT Miller is back, but doesn't look like he's at 100%. And so even if you get those two guys on the same page and playing, neither one of them has been a difference maker on many nights.
The Canucks have a chance to get back in the win column Friday against the Hurricanes. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
That's our news for CFTK-TV. I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching.